Hi, this is Tom Salemi of Device Talks. Welcome to the Intuitive Talks podcast. Surgical robotics presents an enormous opportunity for companies. There are surgeon shortages, sporadic healthcare, and miraculous technological advancement in both robotics and communications. So to understand where this sector is headed, we invited senior executives from Intuitive to share their company's impressive story. Change is coming. Consider these upcoming episodes to be guideposts for the future to follow. Hey everyone, this is Tom Salemi of Device Talks. Welcome to this episode of the Intuitive Talks podcast. I get an education today on how surgical robotics are being or is being adopted in Europe. I had the great opportunity to speak with Dirk Barten. Dirk is the Senior VP and General Manager of EU Commercial and Marketing. His territory includes non-EU areas, including the UK and Switzerland. But he was kind enough to let me know how life is on the other side. I asked, I think, a lot of questions that demonstrated my lack of knowledge of OUS markets for surgical robotics. So he was patient and kind and insightful and informative, and I know you'll enjoy this conversation. But before we begin, I'd like to share an interview my colleague, Kayleen Brown, did with our episode's sponsor, Cole Morgan.
Yoshi Omino, Industry Manager, Global Medical and Robotics at Cole Morgan. Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. So let's start with the big picture question. Tell us about Cole Morgan.
So Cole Morgan, we are the leading manufacturer of servo motion in medical and robotics applications. We specialize in providing solutions and unique support for applications such as surgical robot, medical device such as dynamic imaging that many of our audience members in this podcast are probably working on designing.
As I understand it, Yoshi, you have a long history with Cole Morgan. Can you share a little bit about that history with us, and then also let us know how Cole Morgan works with their clients?
Sure. In addition to the last 3 years being on the team with Cole Morgan, I've been in the motion control industry for about 20 years. And when I started my career in motion control, I had the pleasure of working with the application engineers at Cole Morgan that providing great support and providing the right support to specify the right motors and drive for my personal application. And that's one of the things that we really work hard within Cole Morgan to provide for our customers, and providing the solutions, the tools, industry leading calculation tools, as well as reference resources such as success stories and blogs that you can see right on our website. Anything from dynamic imaging success story to surgical robotics success stories that many of you in the design might be interested in.
Well, I'm going to drop that link to those success stories right here in the show notes. So for those who are listening, please take some time to take a look at how Cole Morgan works within the medical device industry and beyond.
All right, great. We'll hear more a little later in the podcast. If you'd like to find out more about Cole Morgan right now, go to kollmorgen.com. That's KOLLMORGEN.com. Well, Dirk Barten, welcome to the podcast.
Super good. Thank you, Tom, for having me.
You probably have never heard this before, but I'm a U.S. person with a very narrow perception of the world of medical devices. Everything is U.S. specific for me. So I may ask you some very general questions about the European market for surgical robotics and the challenges you face at Intuitive. So I hope you'll indulge me those questions, and I'm sure our listeners will appreciate it. But before we get into that, I'd like to understand how you found your way into the medical device industry and ultimately to Intuitive. So what was it that drew you initially into medical devices?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. And of course, you speak to a very narrow-minded medtech, we can say veteran, but even before my studies, I was super motivated and intrigued by the fact that there is a world where health and technology plays a role. So I studied medtech very early on and I became an engineer. And as that, I went through diverse organizations, a couple of German ones where we were selling ultrasound machines. I spent a couple of years in Stockholm, in Sweden, where I was confronted with neurosurgical devices. And then entered a large US company called General Electric. And GE at the time was trying to become very local and very European and very German. And I was joyful to grow that organization together with them. And after those couple of years, I decided, hey, it's time for going into more innovation and maybe a smaller company. And I joined a small company here called Shirley Fiber Optics. That was beginning of 2000, and in the first couple of weeks in that journey, I got a call from the US from another small company called Intuitive Surgical, and they were looking for some technology pieces. So we at the course there, I met all our today's executives, and they were working on technology bits and pieces, and together we developed this endoscope, which is today a core piece of the Da Vinci system. So we became a supplier for Intuitive Surgical, and so I can call myself a believer from day one. So we were on that journey together. We, as a supplier, grew heavily with Intuitive, and Intuitive, of course, grew faster than us. And in 2016, we thought it makes sense that I join the Intuitive core organization, as there were some challenges here in the European markets for us. And I joined in 2016 and became a GM for the German-speaking countries. And we turned that business around, and I think the company enjoyed that and asked me a couple of years later to broaden my responsibilities for all of Europe, and that's what I'm doing now. So I'm now in charge of the European commercial business, and I enjoy that a lot. It's fantastic. Yeah, so that's my story. So very close, medtech always, but very deep.
Well, let's go back to that call at 2002 when you picked up the phone and they told you what they're doing. Were you like, did you think it was a real phone call? Did you like surgical robotics? Yeah, good one.
No. Yeah, it was. It was not Intuitive calling. It was one of our agents in the US, and they said, and they said, actually, there's this weird company working on robotics. And do you want to speak to them? They have a need for a light cable. And yes, and we met, and in this course we identified that there is more need for technology where we, as a German innovator and optic company, could help, and that is how it started.
That's amazing. So, what was your title at Shirley Fiber Optic when you ultimately left? Were you Intuitive sort of sole contact there? I don't hear often of a supplier going to join a larger OEM. It may happen, but I haven't come upon that path before.
So I was a general manager there too. Mm-hmm. We were two of them. It was me and my colleague Harold. We both managed this company, and I did this commercially. So Intuitive was my largest key account by far, and my counterpart was managing production and R&D. And by the way, this piece joined the organization a couple of years later. So we, in the course of the relations between the two companies, decided in 2019 that we want to buy out this optical piece of this former supplier, which is now the base for our production here in Europe.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So everything came together. So it was a very nice coming together phase.
All right, we'll take a quick break to bring back the conclusion of the interview that Kayleen Brown did with Yoshi Omino of Kollmorgen.
So let's shift gears slightly. As you mentioned at the beginning, Kollmorgen is part of a larger organization, Regal Rexnord. So I want to better understand the different brands within Regal Rexnord and how they work with medtech and robotics companies.
Regal Rexnord is a leading manufacturer of power transmission and motion control. Within Regal Rexnord, we have the mechanical system and also the electrical mechanical system that can provide lots of support in terms of making the motion smoother and also making the motion compact and powerful. within Regal Rexnord brands, in addition to Cole Morgan, we have our Thomson brand, for example, that provide a linear solution in providing smooth motion for diagnostic imaging patient tables, as well as brands such as Porterscap that provide micromotion in terms of surgical robotic tools, for example, or smaller joints within the robotic system.
So it really sounds like a one-stop shop.
Yeah, definitely. So when a customer would come to us with unique problems or challenges that they're facing, we can not only depend on our strong resources within the Cole Morgan brand, but also leverage a lot of the expertise that our team members within Regal Rexnord also has.
So let's narrow down specifically to Cole Morgan. Does Cole Morgan happen to have any new products or news that you can share with us?
We have our new product called TBM2G, which was developed with customer feedback in the marketplace specifically for surgical robot applications. With the many years that we have worked with our customers to develop the best frameless motor, which is a motor that you can actually integrate to your custom systems, robotic arm. And with our years of experience working, for example, in DARPA Robotics Challenge and other type of earlier innovation robotics, we have gathered specific voice of customer from our surgical robot companies or customers to provide unique solutions that provides the high performing torque density that allows customers to provide a very compact solution for their next generation surgical robot. In addition to the performance aspect of it, we have been able to scale the product for larger volume as the customer demand for the next generation of their robot increases as well. So local production within US that allows for scaling with automation, we have the best of both worlds. We have the performance aspect of it with high torque density and compact and performance, as well as scaling. While balancing those together, we have provided a very competitive solution to our customers.
Well, it's very clear to me why so many companies in the medical device industry want to work with Cole Morgan. So let's look into the future and what's to come. How do you see the medical device industry changing in the future, Yoshi?
As an overall trend, and also specific to the applications that I personally worked with our customers on, we've seen a strong trend for diagnostic imaging companies to incorporate robotics to their system, as well as surgical robot companies incorporating AI and other diagnostic imaging type tools in order to bring those two operations together. And that excites us as an organization because we can provide our know how and also experience to a team of engineers that may not have been exposed to specific challenges that we have also overcome in the past. So that's something that we've been able to provide solutions and also innovation to the industry, as well as in order for us to provide better solution to patients all over the world. So excited for that trend, and we look forward to continue to innovate and also solve problems with our customers together.
Well, I have had just the best time with you, Yoshi. Thank you very much. We have Yoshi Omino, Industry Manager, Global Medical and Robotics at Cole Morgan, joining us today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you, Cole Morgan, for sponsoring this episode of Intuitive Talks. Once again, if you'd like to find out more information about Cole Morgan, their website is kollmorgen.com. That's KOLLMORGEN.com. So let's focus on your role at Intuitive now. You hit upon it briefly, but what areas do you oversee geographically, and what are your primary duties, or all of your duties?
So today I'm in charge of, as I said, our commercial business, and that starts, of course, with selling, but that continues with after-sales service that is reaching to payer management and policymaker engagement. So it's more or less everything besides the production and the R&D.
Okay.
That is the world I'm in. And I do this for what we call our direct organization. Whenever we have direct commercial teams hitting the field, that is what I'm driving. There are still a couple of distribution organizations around us, like in Italy or Spain, where we are relying on distributors. That is not what I'm driving right now, but everything where we are direct, which is the majority of Europe.
And you work within the EU?
We work within the EU, but more as well. So, for example, UKI, United Kingdom, Switzerland, Norway, they are not part of the EU, but are part of what we consider Europe.
Good to know. So help me understand as I open this up, this conversation up. I'm not as familiar with how European hospitals and how the healthcare system sees surgical robotics and how it's sort of adopted to surgical robotics. Earlier on in the U.S., it was clearly there was some skepticism, there was some curiosity, there was certainly some doubt as to whether or not surgical robots were necessary, even, or whether they were just some sort of marketing ploy. What was the? You were there, involved with Intuitive at the start, if not exactly at the company. Can you give me a sense of what that history was like in Europe? Was it similar? Was it more quickly adopted, more easily adopted, less easily adopted?
So it is the same story.
Okay.
It was the same doubts. We had to convince clinically, we had to convince economically, and today we try to generate more access to all of those hospitals. But everything happened in a longer time frame. So you can say Europe is about 5 to 7 years behind the US adoption in all the procedures. And interesting wise, when we observed in the US, growth in urology, followed by growth in GYN, followed by the visceral surgeons afterwards. Here it happens everything at once now. This is the exciting piece we have in Europe right now. So as urology started, also visceral surgery started, and we have this overall huge acceleration in adoption. But it all happened a couple of years later, and the root cause for that is that the GDP, the healthcare expenditures in Europe is, you can say, in average half of what is available in the US. So the healthcare systems are not spending that much money, and of course the dialogue and the, let's say, the mistrust that a 1 million or 2 million device is adding value to the healthcare system was probably stronger than in the United States.
What are the challenges like for hospitals and for surgeons in Europe? Again, I'm going to just draw the U.S. as a comparison. I mean, we're seeing a lot of the hospitals or 40%, I think, of the hospitals in the U.S. are struggling or maybe in the red. A lot of pressure on surgeons. What are some of are there parallels on the European side in things and problems that you're helping people solve with Da Vinci?
So I would say here, again, the healthcare systems globally are in the same pain. So staff shortages, not enough money, hospitals, as you said, going into bankruptcy, not surviving. And this is happening here as well. We have right now 2 of the larger markets we have in Europe, which is Germany, largest market. With 80 million inhabitants in that country. The other one is the United Kingdom. When we just look at these 2, both systems are reorganizing their healthcare system towards more centralized hospitals, more cases at one place, increasing quality, reducing cost. And that is a transformation where we are in, where, of course, we with our technology have, I would say, very great answers. Clearly, we are telling the story that with what we offer them, we can be part of the solution. And that is resonating, and that is part of the dynamic we see in Europe.
What has the history been of adoption of Da Vinci and of the Intuitive products in Europe? When was approval first obtained? Yeah, I guess let's start with that. Yeah. And I'd like to just understand how quickly things went.
Yeah, the story started in 1999 when when the CE mark was obtained here. So the regulatory approval was given. And according to my understanding, the first shipments from Intuitive went towards Europe because at that time, the CE marking, the medical device regulation was faster than FDA. So first systems arrived in Europe. We were targeting cardiac surgeons, as you might know, and we were very soon we were hitting the prostate. So the story was here exactly this way. In 2000, two innovators, one in France, one in Germany, they tried the Da Vinci not on the heart, but they tried it in the deep pelvis on the prostate and found great value in that. And we pulled together all the experts of the organization, found that this might be it. And at least here in Europe, that is where the growth started. So it was really in 2000 where this dynamic started. And then parallel to the US, the adoption started, everything slower, so that by today we can say 5-7 years behind. But I think the touch points, the first kickoff was pretty at the same time as in the United States. Yeah, that was for the multi-port products. For our Da Vinci products, you might know the single-port product, which landed already in the United States 6-7 years ago. We just received clearance this year in Europe.
Oh,
so you can also see here that innovation land later now in Europe. The regulatory systems are just more heavy, and it's just coming later. So we kicked off SP this year with great success, and we are super proud, and customers are adopting fast.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, that goes broadly for, as you know, medical, and others would probably know, but for medical devices, I mean, in the 15-20 years ago, companies would go build a market in Europe and then come to the US and get their FDA approval in the US. Now it's very much reversed.
Absolutely.
So I've always heard the term aim for the heart, hit the prostate, or the expression. Yeah. I had no idea that's where that was developed. I didn't realize that had happened in Europe.
Yeah, so our today's executives, Gary, Dave, they were here a lot in Europe at the time, and making those first procedures with the local surgeons. And that is, of course, what makes us proud here, that a part of the history is based in Europe, and we speak a lot about that.
So we talked a bit about the difficulties that the hospitals are having and a lot of the parallels to the U.S. It seems as if you mentioned that there seemed to be a move toward more centralized healthcare delivery, whereas in the U.S. we're seeing a creation of ambulatory surgery centers and almost a drive to move a lot of procedures outside of the hospital. Mm-hmm. Is there any of that going on in Europe, or is it still very much a hospital-based? Will it in the future be a hospital-based healthcare system?
Again, both. So right now we are in the phase that in some of the major markets we just have too many hospitals.
Yeah,
it's just too expensive, too many, and we have this hospital consolidation happening. In parallel, of course, the payer systems, the regulatory bodies are trying to push procedures out from the hospitals into ambulatory centers. So that happens in parallel. So both. We try to concentrate complex procedures in less hospitals, but try to push the more simple procedures in ambulatory centers. Both happens at once.
Okay. So how overall is surgical robotics being received in Europe? We talked about historically about the move to adoption. Today, what sort of success, what sort of traction are you securing for Intuitive, and sort of how are you positioning the products for your customers there to make that sale and to place those systems? What problems are you helping them solve?
So the clinical value, of course, is the same as you have identified in the US. So we see urology prostatectomies. We are between 95 and 100% of market adoption. So it's a golden standard today. Where we are still in the beginning is general surgery and GYN. Here for the procedures we are targeting. We are around the 10 to 15%. So we just start to see a pull from those hospitals, and that is, of course, driving driving the commercial dynamic. I think that is where we are today. We have, as you might know, we have the Gen 4 the segment, the Generation 4 segments. We have the XI as our flagship, and the DaVinci X as, let's say, the more value offering for accounts which are pelvic focused, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And these products are resonating a lot with many customers here in Europe. We have a third of our installed base, which is around 1,600 in total. 1,600 DaVincis throughout Europe. A third of that is DaVinci X's, and that is a sign that this economic value segment is existing, and we observe that often hospitals which start in robotics, they go that path. They invest into a DaVinci X once they have understood the value and that efficiency can be increased with the XI, they convert or they get incrementals in that segment. So that is, I would say, how we approach the market, and again, it's doing well. Rather than that, we offer the full ecosystem. We have from surgeon training into our after-sales service, into digital offerings, financial solution, pretty similar globally.
Mm-hmm.
Our tools and offerings are the same, and they resonate a lot. And we, of course, with all of this, we are setting the benchmark for everything which is happening besides us. Many other companies are entering those markets, and with having these wonderful products, which are 30 years in development, plus our ecosystem is making us strong, and customers are enjoying this relation with us.
How about the DaVinci 5? You may have covered this earlier, and I apologize, but I talked with Miriam Currier in an earlier podcast about the work that went to get the FDA approval for DV5. Where are you with Europe's approval, and what has that process been like?
Yeah, we have filed for CE marking this year.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a little bit out of our hands, so we could see it can happen within a year, can be 2 to 3 years. So this, I would say, is the time frame until we expect clearance for this product into Europe. Of course, here surgeons or our teams are connected internationally, so they all are aware what's going on, and there is excitement because this product is clearly another leapfrog. And everybody's waiting for that. And but yes, the regulatory pathways take a bit longer. It's not really stalling or delaying anything. It's more right now confirming that we, as a vendor, as a partner, are developing the future. So it's perceived very positively.
And I know I keep asking, I feel like a tourist just asking, what about this and what about that? But what about the push toward digital surgery and just the creation of a digital ecosystem in the OR that products like DaVinci 5 and others can sort of feed? Are you seeing that same push in Europe to really create a more holistic digital experience where more data is abound for the surgeon, more information is there for them to help guide their procedures? Is there that same investment in Europe in creating that digital surgery ecosystem or infrastructure?
Yeah. And I mean, this is not just happening with DV5, it happens today already. So there are a lot of digital offerings we have, and there is a strong appetite. I believe that the appetite for digitized decision support is at least as strong, if not stronger, here in Europe, because it's always connected to clinical and economic efficiency. And here, of course, as the money is a bit tighter, people really want to understand not just the research, not just the RCTs we are doing here, also getting the truth out of their own data. And here, our solutions are delivering a lot of insights. And that is probably becoming even more going into the DV5 world. So yes, so digital ecosystem is strong here. We have a high adoption rate of our installed base with the hubs and telesurgery or tele-education. That is happening today already, and everybody assumes that this will take another leapfrog going into the future with DV5.
How is I hear your answer and that sounds fantastic. Are there fewer players that need to be brought into a conversation about digital surgery? And again, I'm going to be the U.S. guy, but in the U.S., you've got multiple insurance companies. You obviously have the government. You have the hospitals themselves. The system in Europe is different in each country, but is it a simpler? Are there fewer players, fewer ducks that need to be brought into a row in line to make something like a cohesive, powerful digital ecosystem happen? Or are there a lot of disparate powers that are still need to be corralled and wrangled and brought in? What's the comparison to Europe to the US?
So you speak specifically on digital, not on robotic solutions, right?
Yeah, I was thinking digital, but let's then, if you want to include surgical robotics into that answer as well. But I don't know.
Yeah, let me start with surgical robotics. I think there are, as you know as well, there are plenty of players entering the market, and that, of course, for some period was a bit of a threat for us. Oh, what's happening? Will there be better, and so on? And so, of course, we were always driving what we can influence, and we stayed on our road, and on the other side, customers were hoping everything becomes cheaper and better, which is probably, this was some years, this is over. Today we are in a phase where customers can clearly compare. What is this product delivering? What is that ecosystem delivering? What is this digital tool delivering? And they can compare, they can decide. And that is doing well for us. So I would say that has happened. And here, of course, for answering public tenders, whenever public money is spent, we have to go through a tendering process here.
Okay.
That is a lot smoother and fairer when you are a couple of companies and you can all bid for the same tender than you are just by yourself. That is, so I would say that the whole competitive dynamic has increased the appetite for systems and is making our job a bit more easy, I would say. So that is, I would say, competition overall in robotics. When we speak about digital technologies, I would say at least around 50% of all our installed base are digitally connected already in the hospital IT environment. So we exchange data, we exchange video, etc. But where we are coming now with the hub and the cloud-based solutions we are offering or starting to offer now is, of course, another depth of information. So this is really helping surgeons, helping hospital decision makers to really go deeper, to differentiate which is a good surgeon, which we have to retrain, where do we have to invest more, where less, and so on. So the depth of information we are offering to them is increasing a lot. And here I would say we are far ahead of everything which happens around us. On the general hospital IT exchange of information, that is, I would say, we are, parallel to many others. But whenever it goes into more deep, more really clinically funded information, we are leading the pack and setting the benchmark again.
Great. And just final question, looking forward into the future, what does growth look like for Intuitive in Europe? I'm just looking at your LinkedIn profile. You opened up a new plant, a new building in Switzerland. I don't know if you're expanding or consolidating, but what does the future look like for Intuitive over there?
Yeah, let me tell you that story as well. We are in the meantime around 1,500 employees in Europe.
Wow.
And that is about 400 people in R&D and production. That is something we are increasing a lot right now. In parallel, of course, we are growing installations, we are growing commercial teams, field service teams. So the growth of people is dramatically. And in parallel, as you said, we are investing in cement. We need buildings. Switzerland, as you said, is an increase of our headquarters in a town called Aubonne in Switzerland. In parallel, we are investing in a new big site here in Germany. In parallel, we invest in a new site in the UK, in Bulgaria. So I would say the sign and what we are telling the market here is that we are convinced of the growth going into the future, and these investments are just showing our confidence. So there is not only on the market this great dynamic, we also prepare for that growth, and it will happen.
Fantastic. All right. Well, this has been very educational for me. I appreciate your indulging. You're indulging all of my my simple questions, but I definitely have a better understanding of what's going on over there, Dirk. Thanks for joining us in the podcast.
Tam, thanks for having me.
All right, well, that is a wrap. Thanks again to Kollmorgen for sponsoring this episode of Device Talks. Thanks, of course, to Dirk Barten for schooling me on OUS or EU, the EU surgical robotics market. And thank you for listening. If you wouldn't mind doing us a few favors, please subscribe to the Device Talks Podcast Network so you don't miss a future episode. Please also share this episode on social media. And when you do, tag myself, tag Kayleen Brown, our managing editor, tag Device Talks, tag Intuitive, and tag Kollmorgen so we can all be part of that conversation. If you and I are not connected on LinkedIn, I'd love to remedy that. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn and to Kayleen Brown. We'd love to be part of your future MedTech conversations. All right. Once again, that is a wrap. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the IntuitiveTalks podcast.